Good evening and welcome to September 17th Town Council meeting. Let's stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Why'd they switch that? I think she switched it. Just want to recognize the chamber tonight was painted. It looks beautiful. So thank you, Town Manager, for acting on that. It looks great. First order of business is approval of the minutes, September 4th, 2018. It was a work session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. September 4th, the regular meeting, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Showcase, I'm going to turn it over to the town manager to give us the final update on the boil water advisory.
Thank you, Madam President. Hopefully we can put this behind us after this discussion. Last, as everyone knows, there was a boil water advisory from August 31st to September 9th for most of the town in South Kingston, and then the northern section of town, the district, was lifted on September 10th. At the last meeting, I thanked all the first responders that helped out with this, police department, fire department, DPW, and so forth. But there was a group of individuals I need to single out one time to thank them individually. It was the 9 employees of the town that work for the water department. It was Jack Eldridge, the water superintendent, John Soapbear, the water foreman, who did a tremendous amount of work 24 hours a day. Mark Kalner, water operator, Jen Lewis, the water clerk, who was on the phone constantly for a 10-day period, troubleshooting. Jake Blacklock, utilities technician part-time, John Lawless, project engineer, Joe Amator, project engineer, Glenn Blacklock, staff engineer, and Hadley Sullivan, the engineering clerk. Even though the crisis has passed, they're still working hard to settle all the outstanding issues that have arisen from it. So I just want to thank them publicly. Thank you again.
Thank you. Job well done. Okay, open forum. Open forum. Anybody wishing to speak? Richard? Please state your name and address for the record.
We voted for a new library in the Belmont IGA law for a major refurbishment, to say the least, of the current library with a bond issue of $5.8 million. We did not vote to include the liquor store.
Excuse me, Richard, is the microphone on? Is there a red light? Oh, it's okay. He's going to help you out.
Okay.
Better.
We voted for a new library in the Belmont or IGA building, or for a major refurbishment addition to the current library with a bond issue of $5.8 million. We did not vote to include the liquor store and the mysterious second floor over the liquor store, which I now call the inner sanctum. At this point, the taxpayers and voters need to have complete transparency on these extensions, which we have not had at all. And my concern is this. I think we could live with the Belmont building. I don't think it'd be a great library, but it would not be a disaster. I am concerned that these additions will destroy the new library. I once again ask these questions as an accountant and auditor, which I still piddle around with. would demand to be answered, and if I were the auditor on the job, believe me, there would be a demand. Does the second floor have 2 exits? I don't think it does. What is its rental history? I can't believe anyone ever would have rented it. Will an elevator be necessary to the second floor? What are the dimensions of the proposed additions? Would I be allowed to do a walkthrough? I would love to get on the second floor. I tried, but the door is closed, and the stairs, which are somewhere in the storage area in the liquor store, I have no access to without breaking in, which I'm not. Would the wall between the Belmont IGA...
Richard, time is up.
Well, I couldn't speak
I'll give
for
you a few more
half a minute.
Okay.
Be removed, therefore killing the second floor. Why was this new purchase raised so late in the game? Voters and taxpayers, use your eyes. I say it to you people as well.
Okay, Richard, wrap it up.
Look at what we have. We are making a colossal error.
Thank you. I just want to make an announcement that the viewers at home are not able to hear the sound, so we're going to take a 2-minute break. We're on a 2-minute break. We have to get some sound for the home. She's here, it's respectful. It just bothers me. Richard, could you approach?
Gonna, this. Oh. Okay. Oh.
People at home couldn't hear what you said. So
All
we're
those
that's why we
poor
have this.
people, they must have been out. Yes. Hi. Oh. Not yet, okay. I'll go back, this is my exercise.
I was trying to get
I know, yeah. Yes. Oh, I do. Oh.
You gotta let go of that.
The only time she'll ask you. It's all Russian.
Oh, that's right, that's it.
Is it working now? Almost.
Test.
So unfortunately, it can't not be rectified tonight, so this meeting will be taped and will be put out tomorrow live on YouTube. So unfortunately, the people at home aren't able to hear or see what's happening, but they will have it tomorrow, so we apologize. Was that due to the painting? Something was moved, or?
There's a unit behind that curtain that sends the signal from the camera, and it was moved when they painted the room, and we think maybe there was a wire issue there, but this was checked out by our technician tonight, and everything was working on this end, but it's possibly something behind that curtain that Cox Communications is going to have to come and repair.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're still on open forum. You don't have to come back up because you're on the tape, right?
Yeah.
Richard, we got you on the tape. Oh, but here, there was no sound. That's right. Go ahead.
It's only 3 minutes.
All right, ready, go.
Yeah. we voted, Richard Vankamish, we voted for a new library in the Belmont IGA building or for a major refurbishment additions of the current library with a bond issue of $5.8 million. We did not vote to include the liquor store and the mysterious second floor over the liquor store, the inner sanctum. At this point, the taxpayers and voters need to have complete transparency on these additions, which we have not had. I am concerned that these additions will kibosh or destroy the new library, which I believe could be a passable building within the IGA Belmont complex. I once again ask these questions as an accountant / auditor would demand to be answered. Does the second floor over the liquor store have 2 exits? What is its rental history? Will an elevator be necessary? What are the dimensions of the proposed additions? Would I be allowed, and others, including hopefully the Library Projects Committee, be allowed to do a walkthrough? Will the wall between the Belmont IGA and the liquor store be removed, therefore kiboshing the second floor? Why was this new purchase raised so late in the game? Voters and taxpayers, use your eyes. Go to the liquor store. You don't have to buy. Try to get into the second floor. Look at this. Does it make any sense? It makes no sense. And for the strongest supporters of the library, believe me, this is the kiss of death for the library. Use your eyes. Use common sense. Please don't do this.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else wishing to speak? Stanley?
Susan, can I suggest that maybe Jim make an announcement so people at home can understand that they can watch this tomorrow? Because all they're going to be hearing is
I just said it.
They can hear.
I just said it's going to be taped and it will be presented tomorrow, but they can't
Susan, I
hear.
heard what you said, but I was unclear. I thought that people could hear Richard speaking.
No.
I heard
Thank-
his voice.
Come on up. Stanley, thank you.
Can we hear, they hear any microphones right now at home?
Because they have no idea what's going on.
They have no sound. They won't
Can
be
we
able
put
to
a
hear
note
it
in
until...
front and say you can listen
Again, I'll
tomorrow?
repeat. It won't be able to be fixed until
Understood,
tomorrow.
Susan. However, people are home being frustrated right now. Can we put a note in front saying that you can listen tomorrow on YouTube? Just trying to find a way to
Get out
communicate
the
to people.
whiteboard, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could probably put something up and hold it up, Ann, as the clerk. Yeah, so they can't see it. Thank you.
Can you go?
Yeah, they can see, they can't hear.
It's like a silent film. So use good facial expressions, everybody. Pretend it's the silent era. Charlie Chaplin.
Okay, so let's get back to the meeting. Stanley, go
Okay.
ahead.
I guess he's more effective on the library than I am. I can only say that has anybody ever been turned away from the library because it was too full to enter? That's from the engineering point of view. We need a library when somebody can't go in because it's so full, not because of an event, but because of library usage. But I really wanted to talk about tonight is the means test. Means test. Are we everybody familiar with means testing? Means testing. I guess it has to do with a person's income. I think over the years we probably spent millions of dollars on assessing property. Assessor. We spent a lot of money on vision appraisal. All these monies we spent to make sure we got the right assessment, so we would get the right tax. We got to get the fair, equal tax for everyone. And that was it. And we spent millions trying to do that. And then after we spend all that money, we come down and we mess up the system by giving certain taxpayers a break for whatever reason. the one I can really remember is the Homestead Act. I think I remember reading in the paper, $1.5 million was transferred from other taxpayers because residents living here got a break. So now we got to transfer $1.5 million to people who live here. But I'm saying all people who pay taxes are equal, and there should not be any inequality involved in assessing someone's tax bill. And I think the means test would probably be the appropriate thing to do, where we would say, okay, nobody gets a tax break. However, the poor people in town have the opportunity to get a tax break either through veterans or old people or those residents. All those people get a tax break only if they submit the means test. The means test to prove, and I don't know what the level should be, 24,000, adjusted gross, bring it to 1040. Show me that you don't have the money to pay the taxes or you're in this low income category and should be given a break. Other than that, it's very unequal to give somebody a break other than what they can handle. Means test. Are you all familiar with it? Did you all hear about it? You all heard about it, and so now can we implement it so we can get back to fair and equal taxation? Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Anybody else wishing to speak? Joe?
Joe Lembo, Black Alder Trail, here on behalf of the Narragansett Chamber. So this is a lighthearted moment. On behalf of the Chamber, we'd like to thank the Council, as well as everyone who made the Rhode Island Calamari Fest such a success last Saturday. Again, between the Council, our Parks and Rec, as well as Fire and Police Departments, our DOT, everyone really helped out. We were able to celebrate a very great event for the town and to show off our robust fishing industry, and brought in a number of people from Rhode Island, other parts of Rhode Island, to enjoy our restaurants, our businesses throughout the day on a somewhat of a cloudy day after Labor Day, and we had a lot of great response all the way around in the town. So again, just on behalf of the Chamber, thank you very much for everyone who helped out and for all the Council's work.
Thank you, Joe.
I meant to comment on that during public comment to thank the Chamber, actually, because they really take the lead on the Calamari Cook-Off Festival. So I want to thank the Chamber.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Bob?
Robert Shields, Earl's Court, 37 Earl's Court. I must take some exception to some of the facts that one of the previous commentators from the audience made tonight. In the first place, as all of you who have read the bond referendum know, there was no mention of a specific building in the bond issue. There was simply that real estate would be acquired for the library. So that's an incorrect statement that he made. Second one is that because there was no mention of the liquor store or the IGA in the bond issue, it's not contingent. The library funding is not contingent on what space we need for a library. The fact is that the market portion of that building is not big enough, according to the consultant that the library has hired. The library consultant has recommended 22 to 24,000 square feet. The market is only 15,500. So it's necessary for the council to understand that the library will need another 6,000 square feet, which is what's in the liquor store and the second floor above it. So I think that those are important numbers to keep in mind. And I also would like to say that the $5.8 million, which the bond issue did say and require the town to meet, is the library will abide by that. I've been told many times by people on the library board of trustees that they will abide by that, and I believe them. So I don't think you need to worry about expanding beyond the minimum requirements that the consultant made in setting up what the library's needs are. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Okay, I've been up in that mysterious space above the liquor store. It's approximately 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. I believe it does have 2 exits. It's also unfinished, and it's vacant, and to the best of my knowledge, it's never been rented. So if that solves any mystery, let's just put that to rest.
Thank you, Patrick. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, we have a public hearing at 8. I do want to ask the council, and I do want the public to know, we have a scheduled meeting for November 5th, and if it's the pleasure of the council due to the elections, if we could cancel the November 5th meeting so that the clerk could set up for the elections. Let's just do a roll call vote. Jill?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt? Patrick?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. We did a roll call, and we're going to not have a meeting on November 5th due to the elections. So it's the 5th, right? Okay. All right, we have a steno coming? Oh, okay, so we'll give her a minute to set up. Do you think we can get through the consent agenda while she's setting up? Okay, so any council member have a question on the consent agenda or would like to pull an item?
No.
Nobody? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, consent agenda passes. We can't get to new business, though. So we'll have to wait.
Okay. Take 5.
Yeah, and you want to do a message and hold it up by what? Yeah. Okay, I need a motion to open the public hearing. Public hearing to amend the text of the Narragansett Pierre Urban Renewal Project Land Use Plan, paragraph C2A, and to grant relief for the paragraph C2B, CA, and C2B, 3C for lot coverage and side yard setbacks. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is open, 5-0.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the council. Tonight's hearing is kind of a unique one. As you know, there's a little discussion earlier about the library and the property that is being considered for purchase. The Belmont building, as we know, is part of the urban renewal site we sometimes call Pierre Village. and it's completely owned. The Pierre Village site is owned by GP Retail LLC, GP Pierre Retail LLC, excuse me, which is a subsidiary of the Gilbane Corporation. Tonight, what we're here to do is step 2 of a 3-part process that would create a parcel of land around the building that would be allowed to be then sold to the town. It right now is part of the land owned by Gilbane, and the important thing is to create the parcel of land in a deedable fashion so that it could be deeded in fee simple to the recipient, in this case, the town. So there are 3 steps involved. There's do the preliminary and master plan of the subdivision, which was completed last Monday evening before the planning board. And they were granted, the applicant was granted a conditional approval for the subdivision to be done. The second step is to provide relief from certain zoning provisions of the urban renewal regulations, which are completely separate and unique to that site. It's not R10, it's not R20, it's not BB, it's urban renewal. And then the third part, should the approvals be granted here tonight, is to go back to the planning board and have the final subdivision approved. In doing the work tonight, your work tonight is to look at relief, zoning relief, and there's a secondary part of that, which is to also amend the land use plan component of the redevelopment plan for Pierre Village to create a new zone that would be a new land use designation, I should say, that would be placed on the site in a configuration exactly matching the parcel. So the focus tonight is to consider authorizing that relief for the completion of the library subdivision and the subdivisions known as the Pierre Plat. I'm going to give you a little brief history, and I promise it won't take too long, but as you know, this is a unique site. The urban renewal area was created in 1969. It was purchased by the town because it was considered a blighted area. It was about between 18 and 18 and a half acres in size. And it was then, because we were using urban renewal funding from the federal government, we had to draft a redevelopment plan. So the redevelopment plan was drafted with its own set of zoning regulations, and those zoning regulations, as I said, state certain things that are similar to zoning that we have elsewhere in town. Although lot size and frontage are not required, but setbacks and coverage and parking standards and landscaping are all part of those regulations. Since that time, since 1969, there have been many changes to the plan, and one of them will be considered tonight. I count 11 changes that were done in the interim years, but there's never been a subdivision of the property. So we had a very unique and ice-breaking experience in looking at subdividing the land. The regulations that I spoke about were implemented by the Narragansett Redevelopment Agency, which was created by the town council to oversee the development or redevelopment of the site. But they were only in place till about the mid-1980s. They were then disbanded, and all of their authority was then transferred to the town council. However, the planning board, I made a little side note here. I wanted to remind myself, the planning board does retain authority over subdivision, even though you folks have authority over the uses on the site. So the current project, let's go to the current project. First, there's the site from the air. And I'll point out some landmarks. This is the building right now. That's the Belmont building. The dock area, dock-roofed area is the liquor store area. You've got Narragansett Avenue here, Caswell Street there. The beach is way over here. This is called Building D, the building right next to the Belmont building. And the others are C, B, and A. But we'll be talking a little bit about Building D. So the idea is to purchase the Belmont building with a sufficient amount of land to support that building, and specifically, as we know, we've had these discussions for some months now, to make certain that there is sufficient parking associated with the library to go with it. So this is a little bit more of a close-up, another aerial photograph, and the red outline indicates approximate boundaries of the proposed lot line. And you can see there are dozens and dozens of parking spaces within the lot line, on the order of about 84. So again, you've got the Belmont building, that's the grocery store with the grayer roof. The darker brownish gray roof is the liquor store area. Caswell Street is here just off the picture. Before I go into any further discussion, well, I will move to the next picture. This is the subdivision that is pending before the planning board. And yeah, it's pretty complicated looking. That's why we're using the aerial photographs for the discussion here. But this is the official subdivision that's pending. And what I'd like to do is to bring up the surveyor who's drafted that. His name is Chris Palmer. He works for David Gardner Associates. And he was hired by the Gilbane Corporation to draw this out. So what he will be doing for you now is presenting the subdivision and pointing out the areas where the zoning relief is necessary. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm associates with David Gardner and Associates. I've worked on this project actually way back since 2004. So I've been involved with it for quite some time. As I try and get back and forth with, all right, I got this.
Excuse me.
As you can see, this is quite a complex.
Do you have to swear him in?
Excuse me. Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
It's Christopher Palmer, 200 Metro Center Boulevard.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. As you can see with this subdivision plan, it's quite complicated. There's a lot of easements, cross easements. The way it was created, there's lines going through buildings. And that's what we see there for now. If you look, the line going through this building is actually separating out the two parcels that are existing now. What is being proposed, let's get to the second one, is a lot with the spaces. And what we came up with is offsetting the building a half a foot around the easterly and a portion of the northerly property line and holding a curb line on the southerly part. The reasoning for that is since there's sidewalks and everything going around it, someone's got to retain ownership, and Gilbane chose to retain ownership of the sidewalks. And then there'll be easements that are granted so you can have pedestrian access going around it. The building itself has been, there is a market, there used to be the old Belmont Market. There's a current liquor store that has a basement to it, that has an elevator. You also have the offices that was discussed, and that was used for the construction purposes. They used that for during the development of the residential side. The lot that's being created, excuse me for one moment here. It's easier on my bigger plan. The lot being created is roughly about 53,000 square feet. As you can see, it'll have access out to Caswell Avenue. It's going to encompass all of the parking going up that property line, also everything that is on the westerly side and that fronts towards the market. The parking spaces on the southerly side will remain with the Gilbane property, which is also, they've changed the lot numbers around quite a bit, 181-1A. The parking also, if you look by the liquor store, the ones on the storefront will go with the building itself that's going to the town. The parking spaces on the outside are not. just because there was an agreement based on a amount of parking spaces to be granted. There will be several cross easements, access, utilities, pedestrian. Those will most likely be blanket in nature just because the utilities cross everywhere. So to come up with a meets and bounds or really describe the pinpoint location would actually hinder the town and Gilbane themselves. So to create them in nature gives the town access to maintain their utility that maintains the building, and it also grants Gilbane the same access to the utility that they're using as well. It's right now like a community system, so to divide that out would not only cost a lot of money to separate the utilities, so I think that's in the best interest of the town and the developer to grant a blanket easements for those. There will be some relief, as was discussed, and that is because we're holding.
Can you go to a smaller scale? Can you go back to that one that's next picture? Show that. No, I think there was another one there before. The round and red.
This one?
Can you explain that one?
That is approximately, yeah. That's
more of a visual that people understand.
That's more of a visual. So if you see, those were the parking spaces to the north, right there. These are the parking spaces to the south. That's going to stay with Gilbane. This is the area of relief, just because you have a sidewalk that goes in between.
Right.
One, if you split it down the middle, it seemed counterproductive. So just when you're doing the easement, it's a lot easier to describe it as, this lot granting to this lot the pedestrian right-of-way along with the access. Here's the right of access that right now the town would have. Also, I don't know if there is any language about the blanket easement coming across for this. I think they're all working those details out now. Yeah. Right now, it's just for the dimensional relief and
I think it's implied.
The what?
And I think it's implied.
Yeah, unfortunately, you have to put it on paper.
Yeah.
So that's what this whole mess came up with.
So this picture is a good picture for everybody to understand the parking spaces. So other than the parking spaces directly in front of that professional building across from the Belmont, we're talking about purchasing for the library all those spaces. They will be totally for the town of Narragansett library use only, correct? So anything in that red line,
Yep,
other than yes.
This,
Yes.
and those, yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's what the boundary also is going to reflect. We're going around that. So you'll see in the next slides, there's some jogging of property lines.
Is that true? I thought the parking near the police station was Gilbane's, and we have access to it, but we don't own it.
I'd have to defer to
Was that
the.
changed?
I'd have to defer to the solicitor on that. I know they were negotiating that.
Yeah.
The town is purchasing that
We're going
land,
to purchase it.
but we are granting
Gilbane. access.
Gilbane an exclusive easement on that
Right.
because they needed the parking
headcount.
for future development
Right.
if they needed it.
Okay.
I don't think we'll be prohibited from using it, but technically, they will have an exclusive easement to that.
Understood. Okay. Just those spots.
Okay. And asking in relief, let me get to the next, there's some blow-ups here that will, this is the relief
East side.
that's being asked. This is right up against the building on the,
East side.
it's on the east side. So you can see I'm holding half a foot off of the building. It's going all the way around the building until you get to the northerly part of the building where we extend it to the wall. Because the wall is what defines the warehouse spacing.
Yep.
And also the dock there. So you'd want to retain the ownership of the wall. Then it runs past that. And there's one little typo in what you have, is that it's asking, there's a 6-inch relief right here. In the verbiage, you're asking for the full 10.
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
It's actually not. It's
I got
9,
it.
and you'll be asking for 9.5. It was because before I did the blow up,
Yeah.
because it was so hard to distinguish when you start widening the line. Everyone wants to see the line real thick. you make the line real thick, you can't actually see that
See
there's
the-
a space
see the 6
between the
inch-
building.
Right.
So I clarified that for the preliminary and final plat.
Nice. Very nice.
I believe, and then there's lot coverage that needs to be addressed. As Mike was saying, I see some of the details to it. Let me get back to it. 30% of lot coverage is allowed. It's going to be 34.8. And I believe you're asking for 10% more relief, Mike, for future development?
Another point of clarification, Madam President. We advertised in the newspaper that for 8.5% relief, up to 38.5% coverage. And then when I wrote my staff report, it seemed more appropriate to ask for up to 40% coverage. But in discussions with the solicitor, I believe it will be restricted to the 8.5% for this decision point here tonight.
Right.
The added 1.5% was intended to allow some leeway for the library to build an entry portico, to possibly have an exterior seating area, or to possibly append an elevator onto the building if necessary, as opposed to building it within the footprint. Both possibilities are there. They just don't know which way they would be going. So we were hoping to go up to 40%, but I believe the solicitors advised us that since we put the ad in the newspaper that said 8.5, hence 38.5 total maximum, we may have to act on that limited amount today, which gets them everything that they need, everything they've got right now. It wouldn't restrict, it wouldn't put the building into non-compliance.
Right.
Thank you.
And Mike, we can always expand a little later, right?
There's always the opportunity to do it again.
Right,
Yes,
up to 40,
change
yeah.
it.
That is pretty much the relief needed, other than you need the 7 foot. That's because you're going from the edge of the curb to the building. If you made it conform to zoning, you'd be inside the parking spaces.
Right.
So we made it the curb line. The 9.5 all the way around the easterly side. Now the abutting lot, which is that B, they need 5 foot of relief because they have a pre-existing part of the building that extends out in the walkway. So while it's there, we might as well clean that up as well. That's why that's in there. Show that. That should be. That is right here. So if you come around the building, you have the entrance that goes in. They had the one little architectural detail that extends out. So while we were asking for it, we just might as well clean up that little part of the property.
The opening is 5.5 feet.
Yeah, the opening meets all of the walkway requirements, but the extension that holds up the roof line of this building, you can just barely see it, is right there. It's about a 6 or 12-inch wall that goes vertically.
Where's the dumpster to the east corner, northeast corner there? Where approximately is that dumpster?
The dumpster's over here.
So it's to
My
the north of
recollection.
that, where the line ends, the property line ends is to the north.
To the north, yeah.
Okay,
So,
just to the north.
yeah, so
All
if
right.
you see this part of the building?
Yep.
Extending the property line from that building, and the dumpster sits right in here.
And
You
how
have plenty
far-
of room for that.
Is that going right off the corner, or is that 18 inches from the corner?
That's going to the wall, to the backside. So you see how it's a half a foot, and then extends because there's a retaining wall here.
Right.
Because the tractor trailers come and
Right.
it goes down into a gully there.
But back against the east side of the liquor store, and if you go west, how far is that corner? Between
from
that,
here?
that property line to the corner heading west? Is that like 10 feet?
Well, going from the corner over to there is 52.58 feet, and that is this dimension right here. So if you come off from, let me try and find a better,
Yeah, I can't see that.
Yep, so if you extend, it's roughly, it's 42 feet off of the corner of the building going northerly.
Right.
And then it's 52.5 feet going, what was that, westerly, to the corner of the, half a foot off the corner of the building of the liquor store.
Right, okay.
And then it projects the 24.5 feet to make all the parking spaces within that lot as well. So all those parking spaces in front of the liquor store are going to be part of this lot,
Oh, yeah, all right.
which is, let me try and find it. All of those right there. I know, that's not that one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further
Questions from the council?
Nope.
All right, I'm going to open it up to the public.
I have
Oh, you have
a couple more
something.
things to do. Don't go too far. Madam President, I have a couple more things to cover before we finish the presentation. Mr. Palmer's shown you the details of where the building is, where the lot line is, and the amount of relief that's necessary in order to create this 53,000 square foot lot to go with the 18,000 square foot building. And we have to keep in mind that I don't have a really great graphic for the coverage except for this one right here. So that the red block is the building, the outline you can see of the lot, and that's 34.8% coverage. So 30% coverage is the maximum allowed. We need some relief from that. So that is part of the task ahead of you this evening. The other thing to talk about is the land use plan. Now we're shifting gears. We've been talking about zoning relief at the moment. That's, you're wearing your zoning hat at the moment. Now we're going to shift gears to being town council again and considering the amendment to the land use plan itself. As I said at the outset, the land use plan has been changed many times over the years. It's 10 or 11 times since 1969. And each time this map right here, which is a little bit difficult to read, had adjustments made. I can tell you that right here, this area here is kind of the medium gray. This is all commercial zoning, commercial designation, not zoning. This is all commercial designation here up against Caswell, right here in the parking lot coming around, the driving area coming around the liquor store. Those are all designated commercial, have been for years. The three buildings, the three small buildings, have been deemed commercial with alternate use. That was a change somewhere in that 20-year period. Over here is the library, and that's zoned, that's designated public, semi-public. And the police station is right, police fire station is right there. It's zoned public, semi-public with alternate uses also. Again, another change that occurred in the interim. What we're looking at is this area here, which you can see is shaped exactly like the lot that we've been discussing tonight. And we've got that checkerboard coloration on it. That exactly replicates proposed Lot 1, and we're designating it, we're suggesting it to be designated for public, semi-public / commercial use. It's a designation that isn't in the plan today, and what it would allow is both commercial uses, retail, as well as public, semi-public buildings like libraries. One of the important components of that is that if we retain the commercial component of the designation here, it remains compliant with the town comprehensive plan. And there's a land use plan in the comprehensive plan. So we want to remain compliant with the comprehensive plan land use plan and only alter the site land use plan to accommodate these two other uses. And we know that should we buy the liquor store, we will be waiting a year and a half, I believe, for their lease to run out before the town could decide on whether or not we wanted to renew their lease or to take it over. So the liquor store in this coming 18-month period or so would not be out of compliance. And that's why we wanted to create this new designation. So that is the last element for you folks to kind of assimilate and digest. The council has two actions tonight. I'm just going to summarize. One is to vote to approve or deny the dimensional relief as suggested, and I'll go through those things very quickly. 8.5% coverage relief. On setbacks, a half-foot, 9.5 feet of relief on the east side of the Belmont building. A half-foot, I'm saying it wrong, 9.5 feet relief on the north side of the building, 3 feet of relief on the south side of the building, and 5 feet of relief between Building D and the common lot line. That's that other small building next to Belmont. That's task A. Task B is to vote to approve or deny the requested text and map amendment, allowing the Urban Renewal Redevelopment Plan to be amended at section C2A to incorporate this new designation and to place it over that parcel of land. Before I close, I'd like to remind the board that we've looked at the standards for review of the relief, going back to your first task. The standards of review for zoning relief, for dimensional relief, are that the applicant, the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure. I think we can all agree this is a pretty unique site. But specifically, the buildings that we're asking for the relief from, Belmont and Building D next door, were placed there years ago under previous approvals. They are not 20 feet apart. If they were, we would have enough space to have 10 feet of setback. So it's a unique circumstance that you've been posed with that we had no control over. The second standard is that the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant. The applicant here is the town, and we didn't do anything to create this. So we feel we're covered on that. Third standard is that granting the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance. Certainly, we're not going to be changing the character of the surrounding area. The building's changing not at all or very marginally with things like possibly an entry portico. The area is still going to be a mixed-use commercial, residential, public, semi-public area. We're moving a library about 300 feet from one part of the site to another. And the fourth standard is that the relief to be granted is the least relief necessary, which we would argue, based on the number of parking spaces that need to go with the building and the building itself, we've made the lot as small as possible to leave the Gilbane Corporation with as many parking spaces as possible. The coverage then became the problem. We could have asked for Gilbane to give us more land to reduce the coverage issue, but then they would have been out many, many more parking spaces. And the last standard is that that the hardship that would be suffered if we weren't to receive this relief amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. And the applicant and the staff would suggest that we've done our due diligence. We've tightened up this lot as small as we can, but still accommodate the parking. We've met numerous times, as you know, with the Gilbane Corporation to get the easement in concept agreed upon. And with all that said, we feel that we've covered all the bases. So we'd ask that you consider taking on those two actions.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike?
Mike, I had a quick question. The dimensional relief,
Yes.
it's 10 feet side
10-foot setback requirements, yes.
setback. Is that for commercial?
That is for commercial or
in the-
public, semi-public. They're the same setback requirements.
Right, okay. 'Cause a lot of times, commercial goes right to the property line.
Not in the
case.
urban renewal
Not
district.
in the- but in other portions of the town, it can go right to the property line.
No. Buildings
it's
still
10.
have to have a setback. Paving can go to the property line.
Yeah, okay, but 10, okay.
Any other questions from the council? I'm going to open it to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak for or against? Richard? And there are two issues, the setback and then the land use.
Please state your name and address for the
Yeah,
record.
Richard Van Gersh, 55 Osceola.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
True, yes. I mean, this is a nice exercise and necessary, whether we keep the liquor store or not. This undoubtedly has to be done, but I would like to emphatically state that this does not mean that we have not formally approved this particular purchase. I mean, this, to me, and I may be wrong, is still in the negotiation conjecture stage. We have not signed the contract, or have we?
Yes.
So we are committed to this purchase.
Yes.
Was there a vote on this?
Yes.
Well, you know, here it is, and what a disaster this will be.
Stanley?
Stan Wojciechowski, Narragansett.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Maybe you can help me. I hear a 10-foot setback. Then I hear that we're 6 inches off the property line, 6 inches. A portion of this is 6 inches from the property line. Does that give us enough room even to get in there and start to paint the building?
Oh, yeah, no.
I mean, 6 inches, so technically we're going to have to be on that guy's land in order to paint the building or
In
do any
most
kind of
cases,
maintenance?
I'm sure there's a maintenance easement.
It's an easement so we can
Yeah.
get on their
Usually
land?
there's a maintenance easement where you can maintain your building.
So we can get out
Set up
there.
staging on Gilbane property.
It just, we're going from 10 feet, I can understand some, but now here are 6 inches. That's some difference. Then I look in that office building on Caswell Street. That office building, it's kind of empty. Someday it might be full, but it looks like you took a lot of his parking. He's only going to have parking spaces along his building. So now if we add any more, if anybody moves in there, now it looks like there's only about 15 or 20 spaces. I don't know. It looks like he's going to be in trouble, that office building on that main road. I don't know if he's going to be able, he's going to have to infringe on the library parking.
I think he's almost fully occupied.
Is it
over
fully
there.
occupied?
Yeah,
Because I see a lease sign out
I
there.
think there's one lease available.
There's one to go. Because I think there's lawyers and real estate people, and a lot of time they do their work at night for customers, and that's when the library's going to operate at night. So now you're going to have some fighting going on and who
Well, we'll
belongs
have
to.
him park at the old library.
Oh, okay. All right, that's how to do it. I figured that out. Then I noticed near the police station, the entranceway, normally the police utilize those parking places that are kind of on the entranceway. So now we're going to stop the police from
Nope.
using they're not going to be able to use that because that's parking for the library.
It is my understanding is business as usual.
Business as usual, but now you got, well, the fact.
We own it.
Well, when you-
Gilbane's going to have access to it. We're going to continue to have access
Okay,
to
but,
it. Right?
but
Correct?
technically, the police are using it now, and sometimes it's almost full. I come in there,
Sure.
and that whole lane is almost all filled up with police cars. Plus, even behind the police station, it looks like there really got a lot of police cars back there also, so they can't kind of move off the street and get in the back either. So I think there's an issue with parking there. Then the other thing is, if you look at the west side of the building, so the parking places on the west side of the building will not be ours. In other words, here we're going to drive up, but not technically not be able to say that those parking places belong to the library. So you can't even park next to the library to get into the library. I mean, you can go on the other side, but you can't.
You mean on the south side?
Is that the south side?
The south side to the right.
Yeah, the south side, I guess
To
it
the
is.
right, yeah, to the top right,
So
that's
we
the
don't
south
have
side.
we don't have those parking places right next to the building.
Well, like Mike said, that, for us to carve that out, we couldn't take all the Gilbane's parking, then we're putting him in violation of
Yeah, well, I
zoning
think-
ordinances.
I think you'd like to have spaces up against the building. Of all spaces you want is the ones that are up against the building.
Well,
You know, I might
again,
forfeit another one
I don't
somewhere else.
think, I don't think Gilbane's gonna have
He's
a
not gonna
full-time police officer hanging around chasing you off the
So we'll just go,
parking lot.
we're just going,
But I'll be watching out for you.
you got keep those spaces.
We'll keep you
over
off
there.
of that.
And now, if we grant these, again, it seems government always violates the rules that everybody else in town has to go on to, you know, and so that's, I guess, the setbacks is, I guess there is no 10-foot setback on any of this property, or is it only on the east side?
There is.
So there is some, but majority, we get the half a foot. So that's a heck of a big change. Then you got 9.5 on one side, I forget on the other side. But it just seems that once you break the rules for any reason, can other people come forward and use this, hey, you did it over here. If you did it over here, I want to do it over here now. I got a hardship down the road on Boone Street or something, and I want to do the same thing. I want 6 inches over there too.
Like Mr. DeLuca stated, this is a unique area. This is
Yeah.
a, urban renewal area. There's no zoning. It's town council and planning going back and forth, cobbling something together. And it's a special area. You can't, anywhere in town, you'd have,
Any place, say, like Boone Street can't come with the same thing, or any other semi. Everybody's going to
they'd
try
be
and do
jumping out
this.
of planes and parachutes on that one.
I'd like to ask Mark that question. Mark, will this set up a precedent for anyone else in town?
The rules are the rules. So seeking the relief, there are criteria that must be met, both the planning and zoning, and you either meet it or you don't meet it. This doesn't set a precedent, I don't believe. This has to satisfy the same requirements that anybody seeking relief would have to satisfy. So it's the same standards that must be met by anybody seeking the odd thing here is the town council sitting as the zoning board, I would say, is unique, but other than that, the criteria is the same.
The only other question I have, I'm sorry. The only other question is enforcement. If we start parking there or they start parking on ours, if we start parking on Gilbane's lots, is it going to tow our vehicles? Or if we park on his or he parks on us, what kind of police action are we getting involved in? Because when we have these community events with the library, we're going to fill this thing completely, I'm sure. And so sooner or later, the condos people.
So you agree we do need a new library?
Yeah,
Since
well,
we have so many events and so many people.
Well, that's
come.
what I figure is coming. I say that we've got a plan for that. There's so many. We're gonna have 500
You
people.
did
over
get
there.
that down in writing,
And
right?
well, that's what
He agrees with the new library.
That's what we're shooting for. I guess we're shooting for a fantastic area over there. We're gonna park all over everywhere. So is Gilbane? There's language in there that says he has the ability to tow my cars off his place if we infringe on his, being a condo thing, you're parking in the condo lots over there, I want to tow your vehicles, we're going to have a sign. Park over here, you get towed, vice versa, I don't know. I don't know what the
Mark,
agreement says,
As far as the relationship with that deal, it's collaborative and supportive of one another. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Mutual.
Well,
Mutual.
there is no explicit right to use parking spaces outside of your property if you're not, I guess, frequenting those shops or the restaurant there. And conversely, they don't have a right to technically use the library spots. But my understanding in dealing with Gilbane's attorneys, there's not going to be anybody monitoring their spots.
Right.
I don't believe the town's going to have anybody monitoring the town spots. I think everyone would benefit from, I think shops may get more customers. The restaurant may do better. So I don't see that as a big problem, and I do think that our space gives us enough spots for what we need for the vast majority of events. So.
Thank you.
Well, it starts
Summertime,
nice
it may be a
now.
different
It starts
story.
nice now in order to get the deal done.
Well,
But
if you're gonna
when
be
you
a-
get the added activity, all the other shops and all,
Stan.
we're going to need 1,000 spots over there. We're
If you're
gonna
going to be
parking
a
all over the
habitual offender,
place.
then they're gonna do
We'll
something.
be out there all the time. I mean, later, I'm sure we're going to need a contract saying, there's no beach parking. I guess that's over there somewhere. So if there's no beach parking,
Right.
there's no library parking, or whatever. That's coming, you know.
Well,
Right now sounds nice,
I'm
and
sure the
we're
library-
friends now.
I'm sure the
until-
library will protect those spots during the summer from
Yeah.
the beach.
The library's going to have a police guy out there saying,
They're-
you know,
they're-
park here.
they're
We
walking
can-
around all the
We
time
got an
anyway.
event tonight, you can't park here. They're going to have to police that, so you can't park here. We got 100 cars coming tonight, you can't park here, you know? And if you do, we're going to have to call the cops and tow you, you
I
know?
think that's the least of our worries.
That's
I
the
really
least of
do.
our worries.
Yeah,
Well,
I think so.
parking sounded like it was a problem, so
Me,
therefore.
I'm going to go park in the 6-inch easement myself.
Thank you. Stanley, anything else?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I just had one question for either Mark or Mike. The zoning enabling, the four standards from that echo the Zoning Enabling Act, they're not in the packet. Can you just reiterate them for the public? The least relief necessary, that they echo the, just so everybody knows what they are, because that's really the standard that has to be met.
Yep. He listed,
Sure.
we're in the middle of.
I just wanted, I
Even
think
at
this
the
is
end,
important.
Maybe at the end, 'cause he.
No, I
just
think this
did-
is, I want to hear them, and I think the public should hear them. It's
All right.
four things, that's it.
that's
And they
fine.
should be in the packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the future, we'll make
Yeah,
sure we
that's
do
fine.
provide that.
Thanks.
The standards for considering relief for variance, that the applicant, the hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not the general characteristics of the surrounding area. That the hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant and does not result primarily from the desire to realize greater financial gain. Third is that the granting of the requested variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan. And the last is that the relief to be granted is the least relief necessary.
Thank you. Yep.
Maybe you could send those to us as well. The public heard them, we could have them as well. Thank you. I know.
Hi, how are you? Brendan Lodge, 4 Pendleton Place, Narragansett.
He's going to swear you in.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Brendan, Lodge. Oh,
Mic on? I'm talking.
Brendan Lodge, Brendan, Lodge. Is there any way to use these slides that were used earlier? Can I
You
go
want,
back?
you want to see your parking?
Sorry?
You want to see your parking where the dentist office is?
Oh, yeah. I'd
Yeah.
like to go back to that slide with the
Yeah,
red
we need-
line around
yeah.
everything. Which one? It was a few back.
Yeah,
This one.
yeah, right there.
So, I own the building that's surrounding this entire lot.
Right.
And I'd like to shed some light on what's going to happen to those parking spaces that are outside our building. All those spaces, we own 22 spaces. Now, when you enter to the Pierre Marketplace, you are actually on our property down in the end there.
Right.
Now, I've had to invest a couple $1,000s on signs. I've had to try to divorce people's idea that when you pull into the pier, that all of these spaces are part of the pier marketplace. They are not. I have tenants that pay a substantial amount of rent for those spaces,
Right.
and they're going to continue to be able to use those spaces however they please.
Right.
I have towed 5 cars so far. The first was during the Blessing of the Fleet, which I put cones up from the front all the way down to the end. Because during the Blessing of the Fleet, those are not public spaces. I have tenants who pay rent that would like to use those spaces to enjoy the Blessing of the Fleet.
agree.
Those are their spaces. They pay rent. We own that land. Now, in addition to that, when I find out that Gilbane is selling deeded spaces for $25,000 a piece, my interest is intrigued. Now I'm seeing that I've got people that tend to park down on the end that are visiting their parents, that are going to the beach, that are going just to hear some music. that's great, but those are our spots. So I will tell you right now, they will be enforced. And to have this imaginary line down the middle to say that you have substantial parking, you don't. You absolutely do not have substantial parking.
Right.
If there's an event, what does someone do when those spaces are full? Now, I've talked to Jan. Those spaces, to my knowledge, she's going to continue to use for any employees for any employees for Trio, any employees in the pier are designated to park in that row right along the red line outside of our building.
Right, to the south.
Right there.
Yeah, to the south.
Now, this summer, I pull in on a Saturday, there's 5 cars parked in our spaces with little laminated tags that say, crepes, wherever. She's going to continue to divert any employees to park right there. What do you do when you've got an event at the library? What do you do if you've got people using that all the time?
Right.
Where else are they going to park? They're going to park in my spots. They will be towed. There's no question about it.
Right.
I will enforce those spaces for my tenants. And in addition to that, we have businesses in there. We have a dental practice. What do we do when 3 people park and there's an appointment and someone's got an emergency, like that needs to see my father? They're going to park down the. What if someone's handicapped? Because the vast majority of his patients are elderly people. They need those spaces. Those spaces get used and exploited all the time for whoever is in the pier. Anyone going to the beach, it's honestly, you do not have sufficient parking. Now, and from what I've heard so far, and I'm sorry for jumping around here, but the space above the liquor store, I've tried to see it myself. I'm trying to lease spaces in the building,
Yep.
which I leased a space this past week for 50% more than I was getting a square foot before.
Right.
I have invested my own money in my building. I've invested more money in the building to update the infrastructure, to create a place where anyone, and one of my tenants lives right on Caswell Street. All he wants is an office space that he can have the internet, access the phone, and work from New York and up here. I don't understand how you guys can think that this space is just open to the public. These spaces are going to be an issue. They already are an issue.
Now, you're talking your 22 spaces
All of those spaces.
are to
Now,
the west of that line. They're all your spaces. I see where you're talking. Yeah, that line. The only thing I can say is I believe the town will be a good neighbor. We don't want library people parking in your spaces, and if they are, tow them.
Okay, and that's the issue. The issue is I have actually tried to be a gentleman about towing cars. I've gone over to the police station.
Right.
I've read them the plate numbers. I've said, this might be a patient. This might be someone. This might be someone. Can you run the plate? They're not.
Right.
They're people who park in those spaces all the time.
Right.
This past weekend, I had an AC unit that it crapped out. It was leaking water. I had to get the carpet cleaned. There are 5 cars parked in the spots
Right.
for the Calamari Festival, where I'm trying to get a truck to plug into the only accessible water source in
Right.
the building is right there, blocked by 2 cars. I mean, this is going to be. Certified Towing is the only company that'll tow these cars. They are more than happy to tow cars.
Right.
It takes 10 minutes for them to be here. And
Tow them. If they're on your property and they're not.
And that's the issue. The issue is it is private property.
Yeah.
So, you can't issue a ticket. I can't issue a
Right.
ticket. It's private property. It's towed. But then
Right.
people come back and are like, what is this? I've parked here for 6
Does
years.
it say no parking?
The signs are there. I've just got 2 more that I need to.
Patrons only?
It
Whatever?
says it.
What's it
I
say?
actually said I asked Certified Towing if I needed to, if it was clear enough. The sign says private property, parking reserved, numbered spaces reserved 24/7 for
Right.
tenants and clients of 28 Caswell Street.
Right.
Violators will be towed at owner's expense. Certified Towing's numbers there.
Right.
You can't get a more
Clear
sign.
yeah.
And this past weekend during the Calamari Festival, 2 cars parked in front of it.
Right.
Who is Jan? You mentioned a Jan.
Jan is, she manages the pier.
What's her name?
For
Okay.
Gilbane.
Jan,
So from what you're saying, not the spots that you own, but the spots that I thought we were going to own, that people that are on the pier marketplace, those shops in front,
That's correct.
Trillo and other restaurants have access, they have parking tags that they can park there at will? Is
That's
that part of
correct.
their lease?
I'm not sure, but
Mark?
those spaces right now, because of the vacancy of the market in that area, any employees are diverted over there as like sort of a general, parking area for employees, essentially to leave all the spaces along behind the police station for patrons of Trio. I mean, that's what I understand it to be.
So what you're saying is when the market vacated the building, Gilbane said, well, we've got extra spaces if you need them.
Yeah, essentially.
So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Second thing is, do you own that building on Caswell?
Yes.
So you own the building and the parking spaces. Did you negotiate that deal with the Gilbane Corporation?
No, we've owned
That
it
was
since 1989.
Oh, that was pre-Gilbane?
I think so, right?
And was the market in business when you bought the building?
The market was, let's see, I was 3 years old, so I'm not sure.
IGA.
Yeah, it was the IGA.
Oh, so I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the history of.
What year were you with 3?
So who owned? So who?
1990.
Did your father buy the building?
Yeah.
Your father bought the building.
Yeah.
So he bought the land. I think it was going to be a gas station or something at the time.
Yeah.
And so he and
Riley.
Jim Riley and Bill Horan bought the land and built the dental practice.
Mike, was that part of urban renewal, that parcel where the building, his building is?
It was just a, I don't think it was.
This.
I don't think it was.
No, that's actually not in the urban renewal.
It's not,
area.
right?
Yeah.
So just to be clear to the public,
So
so
Zone BB.
So to be clear, the red line and those parking spaces, Mark, will be owned by the town of Narragansett.
Correct. At the present time, Gilbane owns those spots, so Gilbane's free to direct
Yeah, do whatever
the
they
tenants
want.
to use whatever spots they own. As I had mentioned, the vertical spaces, we will own those spaces, but we are granting exclusive easement back to Gilbane on those.
Right, but I just want to be clear, the spaces directly in front of the old Belmont shop.
Yeah, no, those are ours and will be owned by us.
Those will convey to us.
Yeah.
Did they in the negotiation disclose any type of relationship they have with any of the shops that would allow them overflow parking there?
No, because it's really not relevant. I mean, at
If
this
they have a
point.
tag that says their name, you would think that means that they have permission for it, right? If it says Crepes or whatever the name of the store, it sounds like it's...
I don't think Gilbane's trying to persuade anyone not to park there unless it's beach parking.
I just want to make sure that when we own it, if we own it,
We
that we don't have
can
this happen to
enforce it
us.
as diligently as we want to enforce it. There's no question that we own those spots. So if we want somebody out there policing those spots, we can police it. Gilbane has zero right to park in those spots.
So I guess the question then goes to what type of harm will that do to the existing businesses in the Pierre marketplace that will no longer be able to use those spots, right? I guess that's what it comes down to.
I mean, the practical, we can't lose sight of the practical application here. If we're going to strictly enforce, the spaces in front of Belmont and Ticketer, I'm not speaking about private property, but with Gilbane, I'm sure we're going to have library patrons who are parking, in the shop spaces. So, I mean, summertime could be an issue. I don't disagree. I mean, I think there's going to be towing going on, and there'll be a learning curve. So, if we have trouble because Gilbane's sending people to our spots, I mean, we will have to determine what's appropriate to enforce our rights there, exclusive rights.
The issue that I have with your view and your statements is, and it's not against you, it's just in general in the area, is I'm trying to draft leases for tenants for 3 years. Like, I like exacts. I like black and white. Like, my dad makes money drilling teeth. Like, I'm in leverage finance. Like, there's a difference. I like credit agreements. I like details. I just like some clarity on the parking situation, and I have none. It continues to be this, it'll get sorted. It'll get sorted. Well, it will figure it out. There shouldn't be a problem. There's already a problem.
So-
And no one really seems to have any idea what's going to happen in the space.
Well, I mean, and not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I feel for you. I mean, you know, I feel for everybody that tries to find a
No, I was
parking
saying,
space in the pier.
I just drafted those leases, and I left it so ambiguous where I'm just like,
Yeah, so what's great for you is you have a defined set of parking spaces that you own with your parcel, correct?
yes.
So that's good. So you can enforce it any way you want, which you're doing, and I understand it's
I
not,
don't want, like, why should I? Like,
well, you should if you're losing customers because they can't park their vehicles. The fact that the Gilbane Corporation has a vacant space, which has allowed everyone to kind of utilize it, you know, here and there over the last 20 years, sorry, that's going away because it was packed before when it was the Belmont marking space, right? So that's,
But we need something more, and I agree. But I'm saying, why does it need to be a full-time job to police these spaces?
yeah, it's a pain. I live on a dead-end street and I have to put
Yeah.
cones out and I shouldn't
No,
have to.
Like,
right? So-
I don't want to do it, but it's when I see someone parking in front of the sign, and the sign is so explicit, you know, part of me feels bad that the car's towed, but the other half is like, I can't make it any more clear, and it's to prove a point. You know, when you've got spaces selling for that notional amount,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people will take advantage of it, and they're taking advantage of our spots on the end, and they're taking advantage of the Gilbane spots right now that are, you know, this kind of communal area. What's going to happen down the road?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd hang my hat on, unfortunately, or fortunately, fortunately for you, you own your spots. Unfortunately, those kind of freewheeling spaces that people have used over the years are going to become dedicated to the library. The town owns them, and I think as good neighbors, you, the town, Gilbane Corporation, the shops, you know, everyone has to figure it out. Mark made a good point. It's going to be a learning curve. If people, and I would focus on one thing, which is beach parking, right? We've always talked about beach parking, and when the pier converted from apartments to condominiums, they had, you know, private security. There's a private security guy that walks the condo property behind where the shops are and during the summer to monitor.
Yeah.
So it's just going to have to be a give and take, I would imagine.
Now, is that something that if who's paying for that?
Well, I would imagine the condo pays for their private security, the Pier Condo Association, or whatever, the Seaview, they have.
The liquor store does as well.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
that, I mean, so if the town finds it's going to be an issue, then as Mark indicates, and Jim would make that decision with the chief to figure out who pays for.
Now, is that something that's going to be added into some sort of CAM charge that we're currently paying to Gilbane?
I can't answer that.
GP Retail?
I can't answer that.
Mark, we got the, what is it, CSO officers walking around? If we had a couple CSO officers, I see them walking around. If we have one on either end of that parking lot, I think we can satisfy any.
If
I
it
mean, you know,
becomes
and
a
you're talking maybe
problem.
what? Maybe 5
I mean,
weekends?
it might not even be a problem.
Maybe 5 weekends a year. I mean, only when there's a big event, then there's an issue. I mean, there's benefits having property in the pier. The downside is there's no place to park. So,
Okay. I mean, that's really it. I mean, all I've really got an issue with is just the parking, and you know, it's going to be an issue. I mean, I can't tell you that this building is going to continue to be a dental practice and what it is. I may change it. It may be something else where I really, you know, there may be a business down the road that needs all those spaces. I'm just telling you right now, they're going to be enforced all the time.
right. Yeah, well, that's fine. I
Yeah,
say
that's-
two.
All right.
It's your property, I mean, the town's, you know, we'll work with you, we'll be good neighbors, I'm sure we will, you know, I mean, if you need to call up certified and get Dick down there to start towing, tow away.
All right.
So, Mike, can you explain to him, it sounds like he has the right to appeal, right? We have a 20-day period after this is approved?
Yes, yes. An appeal period goes with every decision made by the town council, the planning board, the zoning board.
Can you please explain to him what it would be? Because I read the letter was difficult to understand.
The appeal period starts with the recording of the decision. So the decisions will be put on record in the next day or so, depending on which way it goes. And the applicant has the right to appeal to an appellant, someone who would consider himself an aggrieved party, and located where you are, I think you could just, meet that level of standing, can file with the Plating Board of Review in relation to the subdivision aspect of this. And in regard to the zoning aspect of this, could appeal to Superior Court. And, there are forms. We have a form for the Plating Board. You can come into my office and get the Plating Board or is it in your office, Ann? I'm forgetting. It's in my office. Thank you. So the forms are available here in Town Hall, and an applicant, an appellant would identify what elements of the decision might be causing him a grievance and describe his grievance to the greatest detail as possible, and we would put him on the next available Plating Board agenda, which, as you know, is the Zoning Board wearing a different hat. So they meet once a month.
And we could have an emergency session to kind of speed this up?
That would be a decision of the chairman.
Chairman. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one more, I guess the last thing I want to say to this is, I went to the previous meeting last week, I've been to this meeting, there's a lot of back and forth over, 6 inches here, movements here. We're talking about an imaginary line that cars go by. You have to come in and out of the pier. There's only 2 ways in.
Right.
You're on either end of it. So really, the point of me coming here and just trying to get involved in this is there any plan to change the entrance, or have you assessed if this is the most efficient way to enter into the pier for the library? Or
Gilbane owns the approaches. They're established. We're just carving out a lot.
Now, is that
and
why
establishing ownership and a footprint?
Okay.
So we can reconstruct that building.
And that sliver will still remain that Gilbane has carved out towards the top of
The 2 buildings?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. We just got a 9.5 foot. They should be 10 feet from the property line. So I'm assuming the property line's the east side, the west side of the east building.
Okay.
Correct, Mike?
Yeah, this is where we have our property. Yep.
Right. So nobody's parking over there, I can guarantee that. And I'll tell you what, you see the red line with the imaginary line between your property and
Yes.
What if we put a line there?
I thought of that when I painted the lines and numbered them.
I have no problem putting a
that
big
hasn't
red
helped.
line there and says, "Do not park in this man's spaces."
I maybe fluorescent pink or something just to stand out.
Yeah, something to chase
We'll
them
see.
off.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Very well.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at the public hearing? Mary?
Mary Wojciechowski, Narragansett, Rhode Island.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Okay, now the proposed line shows parking places on the south side, and then on the proposed one, I don't know, can we see the proposed one?
Well, this is the proposed layout, so.
That's what it is now, the new one.
That's the new one.
That is the new one.
No, it showed just drawings, it doesn't.
That's what it is today.
All right, go to the other one that just drawings, architecture drawing, right there. It shows, there was another one where it shows parking spaces on the south side, I think for the police on both sides, so we're gonna have to have more parking places for the police and fire department on the left. The south side, that's the east
I
side,
think she's talking about the easement that goes to Castle Street.
right over here. There's parking places here now, but then we're gonna have to add more places for the police and fire.
No, that's that gentleman's property.
If I may, Mr. Lodge, who was just here, was explaining that these parking spaces go to his property. This is a separate lot that he owns and he controls.
No, that's on his side. On the west south. The south. Is that the west, south? North is
to the left.
Well, where's the police station?
The police station is just off the picture right about here.
Yeah, I think go back to that original one.
Can't put the picture, she's standing there. These are the spaces that are next to the police station. Which, I'm not sure which one you want. The red?
What are you doing, Patrick?
Okay.
Hey, Patrick.
As Solicitor Davis said, we will own these spaces, and the Gilbane Corporation will have an easement to use them. That's as much as I've got.
Then I heard something about.
Go ahead, Mary.
We haven't made a decision on the liquor store yet. We have to wait 18 months? Is there any kind of an agreement on that? Sales agreement made on that?
No, yeah, we're not talking about that tonight. We haven't made any decision on that. We have two things before us, the
This is
relief and
just
the
on
land use map.
We're just doing Gilbane, the IGA
The
store.
relief and the land use map, we're talking about tonight.
So it's a standstill for doing the liquor store?
That's not what we're doing tonight. We're just doing the relief for the subdivision.
All right,
Thank you, Mary.
thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Jesse?
Jesse Pugh, 20 South Trail.
Would you raise your right hand? Your other right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Pugh. Thanks. So just wanted to bring up the fact that I think it was last week when the zoning board had their meeting. I think it was a 5-0 vote to recommend approval of the reliefs. So just wanted to make sure everyone kind of remembers that. So it wasn't really a highly contested issue or a partisan issue. It was pretty clear. They're really minimal reliefs when you think about it. Just small percentages around the building to get this done. The sale's pretty much done. So I think everyone wants to see this project succeed. So I think we should move forward with the recommendations of the zoning board. And in terms of Mr. Lodge's issue, part of this is you want to make this work for everybody. So instead of kind of, finding ways that we disagree on it, we should work together, I think, in really a simple way to get it to work for him as well. We want him to be happy. You're going to have a new library across the street. I think that's an advantage for his tenants as well. And I understand his issue. It's a real issue for his tenants. And I actually rented an office in that building a few years ago. And I could see how it's confusing with the parking there. You have people coming in for the summer. They don't realize, even though there is signage, they don't always realize that that's not public parking. So, Patrick had a good idea, I think, putting a very visible, clear line between the sections, and I would take it even further and block out that entire area of 22 spots and paint that a solid block color. So that whole thing should be yellow or red, and very clearly on the blacktop say tenant parking only. It should be absolutely clear, and I think the town, should work with him on that and maybe use our resources to help cover that cost of painting it. We want him to be invested. He owns that building. I think we want everyone to be happy with it. So it's just a couple thoughts on that.
Thank you, Jesse.
Susan, one clarification, the planning board was a 4-0 vote. There was one absent. Dr. O'Neill was not there, so the vote was 4-0.
Correct. Wynn.
Wynn Hames, Wintersby Hames III, 30 Wood Avenue, Narragansett.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My problem from what I see here, I think the easiest solution is for everybody to come up with some kind of easement for people to use, for both of you to use. I mean, you've got a double parking lot coming down to the right side of that line. There's no way anybody can get into those parking spots on the left without going on his property, going in or going out. You put two cars there, one of them, if you're going to leave, you have to go over to his property. So, I mean, everybody should be able to work out an easement where he can use your spots, you can use his spots, or however, just as long as everybody's got enough spot, they can run their business, and there'd be enough people for the library. I mean, if you go to the dentist office, you're not going to park way down this end. You're going to park up toward the dentist office, even if it's one spot over to walk in. So, you know, I mean, to me, simply sit down, come up with an easement. Everybody can use the spots. I mean, it's never been a problem. Even with Belmont, it wasn't a problem with any overcrowding in there. And I think Belmont would have had a lot more cars parked than the library is going to have parked. So.
Thank you, Wynn. Anybody else wishing to speak? Paul?
Paul Zanfrillo, 7 Winwood Circle.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
Thank you.
I think that ZONFRILLO. I think Jesse and Wynn are being a bit naive if they think that painting things or whatever. I mean, they are not subject matter experts. Patrick, you're not a subject matter expert in parking. We need a consultant to come in and decide how that would be mediated. Nobody really knows. And the gentleman who had the complaint, he's worried about getting sunshined and say, yeah, it'll be fine. We're already telling him it'll be fine, and you're really not addressing his problem. It really shows the lack of planning of putting the library in the pier. It really shows the lack of thought and the rush to get it through, because now every time there's a problem, say, hey, we got to hurry up and get it through. We got to get it right. It's more important to get it right than get it done quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Lori Kelly, 25 Wildfield Farm Road.
Lori, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I'm going to let the parking thing just go to the end here. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone on the council for their hard work over the last 2 years since the bond was passed to get us to this point. It's kind of shocking to hear there's a rush to get it done really quickly, because it does not feel that way on our side, and I'm sure it doesn't feel that way to the council as well. But here we are, we're finally on the brink here. I did go to the planning board meeting, which was a 4-0 unanimous decision to use this building as a library, and they said in part, which was in the paper, the subdivision is in fact consistent with the Narragansett Comprehensive Plan, as urban renewal was designed to be both public, semi-public, and commercial, and it conforms with all state and town regulations. And I think if you look back at why this was so overwhelmingly approved 2 years ago, it's that the public understands that a building that has been empty for nearly 10 years in our downtown across from the beach is not the best use of that building. And to use it as a public space for the library could be an economic driver, not just for that area, but a year-round pull to bring people into Narragansett. And I think that those of you who have fought for us to get this space, we really appreciate it, and hopefully this will be over soon and we can move on to the next step. As far as the parking, though, The library has had parking problems because we are in the same area. We do have someone on occasion that goes out and makes sure that people are not parking for the beach. The reason that there was excess parking was, to Mr. Moretti's point, is the building has been empty. So any use of that building, if Gilbane rented it to someone else, those parking lots would be the same problem for everyone in the pier. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody else wishing to speak at the public hearing for or against?
I just want to say something about the park. Okay. The town owns the property. We have, I don't know how many CSO officers we have walking around. We have, what, at least a dozen? 15, maybe 18? I don't think, I mean, during certain times of the summer, certainly somebody's going to try to slip a beach umbrella over there and steal a parking spot. So I think having a CSO officer, protecting those, I think that's going to be a given. And I don't see it a problem, him defending Mr. Lodge's parking across the way. I just don't see a big problem here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on the council or in the public? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Do I have a motion to accept the relief dimensions from anybody on the council?
So moved to accept the first action.
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Do I have a motion for the site land use map?
I move to
Semi-public, sorry.
the second action.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I think, because this is kind of the end of the, a little bit anticlimactic after all this. This is, the agenda item doesn't even mention the library tonight. I got very little over the weekend about this, and now people at home can't even hear what's going on. So a little anticlimactic after a long process, but it did start with an effort to improve the library and to make it handicapped accessible. And it has morphed into something tonight, as I'm sitting here, that is just not what I think is in step with what the townspeople want and for the future of the library. We talked about, one of the people who spoke tonight, Mr. Dodge, asked for clarity. I think there's very little clarity here. I think Jill pointed this out. I don't remember which of the many meetings or discussions we had, that when this library project, with the Gilbane deal, there's been ripple effects and unintended consequences as we kind of pursue this deal. And we've seen that manifest itself in the liquor store conversation. Are we going to now own the liquor store and have them rent from us? Are we going to kick the liquor store tenants out? And then the discussion of the pensions. And then, and now we're talking about this parking situation where if we really are concerned about revitalizing the pier, apparently some of these spots are being used in a way that Gilbane's letting people use those, not people, letting some of their businesses use those as extra spots. I've just seen this kind of grow as a nightmare. I mean, I've just sat here, I've been in the executive sessions from the beginning. I said if it's not a good deal, we should stick with the existing site and go back to the Plan B. I stick by that because we've seen this just get worse and worse. And tonight, we talked about some of the, one of the reasons I wanted those legal standards on the record, we talked about the hardship not being a result of the prior action of the applicant. The applicants, the town council, the town, acting on behalf of the town, a majority a majority of the council has pursued this. Obviously, the action is a result, what's going on is a result of our actions. So hard to say that we didn't, we're the ones who initiated this whole process. I just think in the end, this whole thing, we're at this final step in the process. It's too expensive, from what we've seen tonight, too complicated and ultimately unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for the approval of the land use map.
So Susan, the only one thing I wanted to add, please, to Matt's, because I agree with many of the points that Matt made. And again, I want to state that I did vote for this. I did vote for the 5.8 bond. I think that if the town of Narragansett had a chance this November to vote on the project this has become, what it has morphed into, I don't think you would have the 67%. I don't think it would be there. That's not what we're seeing in emails, not what we're seeing from people who speak with us. We definitely need to have a new improved library, no question. It's something that obviously people are very passionate about. However, if we were to go out to the vote right now, I don't think you'd get the same results. People don't want this.
Well, I'd like to say something, okay? I didn't vote for the library bond, okay? Now, I'm supporting this because this is a good deal, okay? We're buying, what, $25,000 per parking spaces? How many we have, 63? 84, access to 84, so I can't do that one in my head, but anyway, what is that? Oh, it's, what, 750,000, just in parking, according to Mr. Lodge, right? We're buying this at $127.27 per square foot. Access to 80 parking spaces. We have ownership of a lot. Everybody was ready to sign up for 2.4 for a condo with no ownership. This is a good deal on all levels. And then the state's going to come in and pay up to 50%. Or let's say 40%. Let's not say 50%. Let's say 35%. This one's a no-brainer for me. And I voted against the bond.
And that's the most incredible thing. You've gone from voting against the bond, the only town council member on the last council to not vote for it, to wanting to do anything to have this, including now we're going to be paying
because this
a common
is turned,
fee.
this, we were able to cobble this into a good deal.
Okay, the motion on the floor is the land use. Do I have, we have a motion and a second discussion that kind of drifted away to bigger pieces of the library. Anything else before we call it to a vote? Anybody from the public? All those in favor of the change for the land use map?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
3-2, motion passes. New business. All right, we're on to new business. Thank you, everybody, for your hard work.
Applauded themselves.
Yeah, we're going to send it to the planning board. We have to make a motion to send it, approve it, and send it to the planning board?
I'll move
No.
that.
Placed on file.
No, I'm looking at the clerk that just placed, just to receive and place on file. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those,
Aye.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, might as well. Why not?
5, is that a yes? 5-0, motion passes.
Okay, we're just receiving it.
Thank you. Okay, new business. Number 10, a motion to approve the replacement of a planning technician in the Community Development Department. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, Bruce is leaving, right?
Bruce is.
This is a budgeted position.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not a new hire.
Do you want to say anything, Jim?
Yes, Madam President, this is a budgeted position. It's in 1033, the union. As with any full-time position, I come to the council and request your permission to fill it or not fill it. I've looked at this position. I've spoken to Mr. DeLuca and Jill Sabo as well. And I spoke to the outgoing technician, Bruce. And there are a multitude of functions that this person does, this technician does fill there. If this was not filled, it could trigger a grievance, which we'd probably lose, number one. And number two, I was told by every person that I spoke to that it would slow down planning and development to a crawl if this was not filled. And I have a list of his responsibilities here, if any of the council members want to see me, and there's 5 pretty big ones. So I would recommend this be filled.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council?
Jim, the biggest one is he writes about 75% of all the staff recommendations for both planning and zoning, correct? So we'd have nobody to do that.
That's correct. It's 75 to 80% of the
Okay.
staff reviews. Building Alterations in the Historic District, Conservation Commission, Harbor Management Commission, and the Planning Board package preparation.
I've expressed concerns in budget about this and the municipal clerk position, so I'm on the record.
And Councilman Manager.
I don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
good, thanks.
Well, my only concern is we're not going to be able to fill Bruce's shoes because he's been a very good planner for the town. And God bless him wherever he's going. Good luck.
Any more discussion from the public? Go ahead.
Gloria Roman, 33 Wheatfield Cove Road. Just a question. When you approve, if you approve the replacement of this person, will this person be receiving medical benefits and pension benefits?
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes.
This person it's a union position, yes, would receive full benefits and pay from the town.
Thank you.
So that's the clarifier to be a union member?
I don't know what the clarifier is, but this position here that you've asked me about is in a union, and I've answered the question. It's pension, benefits, and pay by the town.
It's an existing union position.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's not 10. It's 10. No, it's 10.
All right, we're ready for vote. Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
No, opposed.
Oh, sorry, 4-1.
No.
4-1. Mr. Mannix is a no. Motion passes. Number 11. Motion to approve the replacement of one firefighter due to a retirement. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 12. A motion to accept a reimbursable assistant to firefighter grant totaling $229,000 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Department of Homeland Security, assistant to firefighter grant program, and to the town manager to sign, accept of said grant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Again, so proud. Go ahead. Jim, do you have anything to say about this grant?
Other than that, the chief is here, and once again, he's gotten us a substantial grant.
It's unbelievable.
That he's constantly working on grants.
I know. Very impressed. Any
We'll
questions?
take this one.
Thanks, Chief.
Keep up the good work. Keep bringing the grants in. Excellent.
No, Stanley,
Stop,
we can't put
Stanley.
it towards cars.
Anything that can kind of save the taxpayer the dollar,
There you go.
I gotta shake his hand.
I think we're going to
He's
turn it
doing a
into
good job.
grant money into parking enforcement.
Put it where it's best needed, and I'm sure he'll find that spot. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 13, a motion to request that the event coordinator's position in the town of Narragansett be equal in salary and benefits. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second that. I put this on, and I just, we had a workshop about the venues that were managed in the town, and through that, there was a position that came up that didn't quite seem fair. There were positions that weren't really fair and equitable, and I believe in fair work, equal pay, equal benefits, and so maybe it's something that we'll address down the road, but I felt like in that workshop, it was obvious that those positions, and they're not union positions, just didn't seem all squared up and equal and fair. And I, again, try to understand that. So this motion's there tonight. I know it might be premature, and I know that we said at the workshop we were going to address it in the budget season, and I know there's some opportunity to even talk more about the venues, but I I just felt bad for one of the employees that was there and felt like they weren't equal. And so that's why I put the motion on. So we can,
Yeah, so I mean, I think I said it in the workshop, and I'll say it again. I'm all for, equal pay for, jobs that are similar in effort. I think there's a bigger effort here, and we talked about this at the workshop as well. I really, at some point, want to go down the path of having Jim and his administrative capacity look at all of these venues with the help of Steve and Donna and Daisy and really come up with a solid plan, and I think this is part of that plan. So I'm, nothing against any of the employees here in town. We all, everybody does a great job and works as hard as they possibly can. I just don't know if this fits in the realm of the overall big plan,
so we can, if it.
Can we amend to?
I mean, do you want? I mean, I do have a motion that I've.
Continue to, I don't know, it's the motions that can Daisy come up?
You're the president.
I mean, we're speaking on it, so we can continue it, but.
How about continue the study? Move the study.
We did that already. We've already had Jim make a study for us, and he presented the information to us at the workshop.
I think we need to figure out what we're going to do with these venues first before we start handing out, pay raises or jockeying around positions or something. We got to figure out what the model's going to be before we talk personnel. That's my feeling.
Okay, Daisy, come on up.
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate the time to talk about it. I myself run Kinney Bungalow and the North Beach Clubhouse, and I'm asking for fairness and equality for both myself and Donna DeChico, who runs the towers. Right now, things don't look to be fair and equal. My 40-hour position is considered part-time, whereas to her 35-hour position is considered full-time. She receives 18 paid sick days, 2 weeks paid vacation, 3 paid personal days, and dental. I only receive medical, which I am grateful for. We both work very successfully, very hard. We both put a lot of passion into the job, and I don't think it's unreasonable to think that they should both be equally compensated.
Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you.
So do I have a motion to continue?
Move to continue.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, I have a hand up for us since before we continue. Go ahead.
Yes, Lori Kelly. I was astonished to see this on the agenda. Again, you can continue it or whatever, but this is the same kind of problem we have at the library. You have removed 2 people who work for the town from the pension plan, and now we're looking around at other people saying, oh, well, they're not in the pension plan, they don't have benefits either. I mean, this is, once we have opened this can of worms, now you really must go through and audit every position who is entitled to pensions. According to the ordinance that I have, anyone working over 20 hours a week is entitled to pensions. And I don't know how employees like that are left out either, unless they're not part of the town either. But I would bet that their checks also come from the town. Thank you.
So,
Thank you,
Madam
Lori.
President, just I had a long conversation with the town manager. I think there's, and this is not going to be my problem. It's, the next council.
You mean your solution?
My solution. I think and Jim and I talked about this at length, that there are some differences within personnel that Jim is really focused on. If you were focusing on this particular case, I think this is, Daisy's, the discussion that we're having about Daisy and Donna's pay being equal can be wrapped into a bigger discussion about all of those venues, and I think that's going to be part of Jim's big project moving into next budget season.
And I'm happy to continue. I'm sorry that I felt it was a little pushy putting it on, but for me, the equal work, equal pay is really something that is passionate to me and the people that work in the town. So sorry for rushing it, and I know we're going to solve it, but I'm happy to have put it forward for a discussion for public to hear, because we obviously need to research the positions and balance them to make them fair in the venues in the town. So for that transparency, I'm glad. So with that, we'll continue it. Do I have a motion?
I think we have a motion on the floor already, and I seconded it. Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
5-0, motion passes. And the last one for the evening is 14, a motion to authorize the use of the miscellaneous repair and construction services contract with George Sherman Sand and Gravel, Inc. to complete drainage pipe replacement on Glenwood Avenue in the amount of $11,100. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Good night, everybody.